On episode 4 of the Luke Who's Talking podcast, we're going to talk about finally swapping my hard drive, getting the night sweats, and pulling a Jonesy. Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the Luke Who's Talking podcast with me, Luke. Now, I will apologise if you hear a lawnmower outside. It's because the neighbour's mowing his lawn. How inconsiderate of him. When I'm trying to record, he's out there mowing his lawn. Absolutely disgraceful. So let's get into the first story. And it is a continuation from our previous episode, How Hard Can It Be, of me trying to swap a hard drive, a faulty hard drive that I had. So I explained I had a hard drive, didn't work, took it back to the manufacturer, the store, where I bought it from. Wanted to swap it, I couldn't because I claimed a tax refund on it. So I couldn't exchange the drive until I had claimed that tax back. So, long story short, or maybe it'll just be another long story. I don't know, last week was like the last episode, I should say, was like the longest episode of the podcast to date. But anyway, this is what happened. So, I contacted who I needed to contact and I paid back the tax on the drive. So, they sent me some documents, like a receipt, etc. I printed out and I took them with me back to the store where I bought the drive from and said, I bought a hard drive here and I want to swap it, blah, blah, blah. Now, I will point out that they kept the drive at the store. They didn't give it back to me to bring back. So there was a bit of confusion about, where's this hard drive, blah, blah, blah. I said, well, you kept it. Took it from me and kept it here at the store. So the girl's like, blah, 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 having a meltdown about that. Anyway, so that was fine. Went and got the manager, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it resolved itself. And it got to a point, an interesting point, where they asked me, do I want another drive or do I want a refund? And I had a bit of a thought, and the drive, I had used it for what I intentionally bought it for. So at the time I didn't really have a need for it. I've got plenty of hard drives, but I guess you can never have too much storage. But anywho, so I said, I'll have another drive. So that was fun. I went to the shelf, did whatever. We don't have any 1 terabyte ones left. You can have a 2 terabyte one if you pay the difference, which was I had to pay about $20. So I thought about it for a second and I thought, I'll take the 2 terabyte one. Now, you might be thinking, it cost me $20. You're wrong. It cost me nothing because my brother for Christmas actually had given me a gift card for this particular store, for this particular chain. So I got my gift card out, used that, so I didn't have to pay any money. I used my gift card, took the $20 off of the total of that, and I got a 2 terabyte hard drive back as a result. Yeah, that was all resolved, so I thought, I'm leaving the store. Anywho, on the way out, I stopped where the hard drives usually live at this particular store and had a look, and guess what? They had a 1 terabyte one there on the shelf. Even though the guy was like, we don't have any 1 terabyte ones left. You can have a 2 terabyte one instead if you pay the difference. But turns out, at least on the shelf, they had an empty box for a 1 terabyte Western Digital hard drive. What fools. Are they fools? I guess the guy's probably just looked on the computer. We don't have any here. But they had one on the shelf. So anywho, I got a 2 terabyte drive. I probably could have got a 1 terabyte drive, but I didn't have any on the shelf apparently, but they did. At least they had an empty box on the shelf. I don't know. Interesting. So the hard drive saga is resolved, and I'm currently using said hard drive as a backup drive for my mother's old Windows computer. So I set up the backup, so her computer backs up to this rather fancy hard drive, but I don't need it at the moment. So I was like, what am I going to do with this drive? I'll create it. I'll create a backup so it can go on my mum's old Windows computer. Hilarious. We're in winter here at the moment in Australia. We're getting towards the end of winter, which I don't think winter's been too bad. But you might think, you're going to be cold in bed, you're going to be getting the chills whilst you're in bed. Well, some nights, yes, but other nights I've been waking up like all hot and sweaty and just nasty. I haven't been liking it at all. Thankfully, the last couple of weeks, it actually hasn't been happening to me, which is nice. But, it's supposed to be cold and you wake up and you're like all hot and sticky. And I don't know. It's not very nice at all. And you take your top off or whatever, and then in the morning when you wake up, it's cold and damp. Your top's cold and damp, and you can't really put it back on. And you kind of, chuck it in the wash, and it's just not very nice at all. And obviously, I just sleep a bit hot. I suppose it's good I'm not sharing a bed with anybody because it would just be like a sauna. Is night sweats like the meat sweats? I don't know. Maybe I've just been having bad dreams. I've been waking up and I haven't been remembering them. That could be it. Solved. Absolutely solved. That was a bad story. It didn't really go anywhere, did it? The other day, I had to pull a Jonesy, an Indiana Jones maneuver. I was at work and I was driving the car. It was a Sunday. I had to go and do a job, come back, park the car under the garage, do whatever I had to do, and then leave. Pretty simple stuff. However, slight hitch. So the key for the car had a garage clicker, so you click it and the roller door for the garage would go down. That was fine, but there wasn't at the time, I didn't notice, I'll say that, a button near the garage door for me to close it there. I had to use the car key. So this presented a problem because I would hit the button to close the door, and by the time I put the key where it lived, got to the door, it was closed. And I was like, well, how am I going to get out? How am I going to get out of here? What I did was hit the door key on the clicker, put the key where it needed to be, slam the door to the office, run across the garage door, up the ramp, and then I rolled under the garage door before it closed on me. That's how I managed to get out of the garage. It was a one-shot deal, and I didn't get squashed, and nothing got left behind, so I managed to get out of the garage. The next week, I was talking to somebody about this, and I said, how do you get out of the garage? Because you drive the car, you have to leave the key in the office. And they said, oh, well, there's a button near the door to close it. And I was like, oh, okay, so there is. Now, on the garage door motor, there's a string, and it has like a big red sort of button on the end of it. A big red sort of handle thing, sort of like a clown's nose. So I was pulling on this rope to see if it would close the garage door, but it didn't. However, on the end of the clown nose, there was a button, and you pushed the button, and then that closed the door. I didn't know this at the time, so that's why I had to pull a Jonesy. But I suppose at least now I know that there's a button on there. I felt like a bit of a goose, but I got out, saved myself. I got to look back on this in 10 years and be like, wow, I rolled underneath that door. Lucky nobody was on the street and have me roll into them. That would have been interesting. Well, that is it for this episode of the Luke Who's Talking podcast. Don't forget you can email us, lukewho'stalkingpod@gmail.com. We're on the Twits and on Facebook as well. And if we're not on your favourite podcast app, send me an email, tweet me or whatever, and I will look into that. Now, before I wrap things up, I will be making an appearance on the Sunshine Summit, celebrating the first anniversary, the podiversary of the Sunshine and Power Cuts podcast. Jeez, I had to think about that for a second. Oh, so many suns, so many S's. The Sunshine and Power Cuts podcast. Go to sunshineandpowercuts.com for more details on that. And I'll catch you next time.